By now, you should be comfortable with determining just by looking at a demand curve and its relative slope whether it's relatively elastic or inelastic in nature. In the upper panel of this slide, that one shows the demand curve that is, of the two, relatively elastic, meaning there's a fair amount of price sensitivity on the part of consumers with regard to this product. And the point I want to illustrate and emphasize in this video is the important relationship between the elasticity coefficient and total revenue, because that's going to become very important to us in the production and cost chapters later. And your author talks about the important relationship between the elasticity coefficient and total revenue that's generated when a producer produces and sells something. So for example, in this first upper panel, the one that represents a demand curve that's relatively elastic in nature, if you consider what happens if you lower the price from, say, $2 to $1, as he does in this example. So what happens if you lower the price from $2 to $1? Well, total revenue is the money income generated when a producer produces and sells something. That's determined by the price at which he can sell each unit times the number of units that he produces and sells. So for example, if the price is $2, this demand curve indicates that this producer has the ability to sell 10 units. So 2 units, or $2 rather, per unit times 10 units produced and sold would generate total revenue to him of $20. But when the price falls from $2 to $1, what happens to total revenue? Well, total revenue again is always the price, in this case now $1, times the number of units produced and sold. Now it's 40. So the total revenue here would be $1 per unit times 40 units produced and sold would be $40. Well, if here the total revenue is equal to $40 when the price is 1, and the total revenue is equal to only 20 when the price was 2, clearly as a result of lowering the price, the total revenue increased. So here, when the price goes down, the total revenue increased. Or conversely, you could look at it the other way and say, well, what if I raise the price from $1 to $2? Go back the other way. Well, obviously when the price is $1, the total revenue is 40. If you raise the price to 2, the total revenue becomes 20. So the exact opposite occurs. So that's also like saying, if you raise the price, the total revenue declines. Well, let's look at what happens if we consider a price change when we're in a situation where the demand for the good is relatively inelastic. Remember, the steeper the demand curve, the more inelastic or less price sensitivity there is. So, for example, let's look at what would happen if we lower the price from $4 to $1. Again, the total revenue is always the per unit price. In this case, if the price were $4 per unit times 10 units produced and sold would give us total revenue of 4 times 10 or $40. But if we lower the price to 1 in this scenario, now we're only able to produce and sell 20 units. So the dollar price of $1 per unit times 20 units produced and sold would give us a total revenue of only 20. So this would be the exact opposite scenario of what happened above. Here, when we lower the price from $4 to 1, again, we're lowering the price. What happened to total revenue? Total revenue declined. It did the exact opposite of what happened above. Or conversely, we could also say, well, what if we increase the price from $1 to $4? Well, When it was $1, the total revenue is 20. If it's $4, it's 40. So if we raise the price, the total revenue went up. Notice that the scenarios down here with regard to what happens to total revenue when we change the price are exactly the opposite of what they were up here. And the only difference between these two examples is that in the upper example, we had an elastic situation. And in the lower one, down here, we had, I can get my pen to work, an inelastic one. Now that might seem trite, but that really is very important, because what that says is if you're a producer of something, you definitely want to know what's going to happen to total revenue when you change the price of the good, correct? Whether the market demand is influencing that price change or whatever is influencing that price change, you want to know if the price changes, what's going to happen to your total revenue. So only when you lower the price would your total revenue go up if you were in an elastic region of a demand curve. The opposite would be true if you were in an inelastic region of a demand curve. I hope this helps you understand the important relationship between the price of something and what happens with total revenue based on the elasticity coefficient. Thanks.